Now, coming up, you might remember from yesterday, we played a little clip from South Park, because South Park, a very successful animated series over in the United States of America, I think it's available on Comedy Central here. They've got a new series out, and they've started making fun of Harry and Meghan. Yesterday, the clip showed two little kids talking in a classroom about how they're sick to death of hearing about Harry and Meghan, and how they don't want to hear any more. We're sick to death of the prince and his stupid wife, was the quote. Well, now we've got yet another clip for you, which is even funnier. Have a look at this.
In Toronto, it's Good Morning, Canada. It has been several months now since our beloved Queen has died. All Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the Prince and his wife. We want privacy! We want privacy! Thanks for having us on the show. It's so awesome to be here. It's great. So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, Wah. Yes, that's right, friend. You see, my wife and I are totally like, you should write a book because your family's like stupid, and then so are like journalists. So you hate journalists. That's right. And now you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right. So you're a journalist. We just want to be normal people. All this attention is so hard. Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines? What are you suggesting? Well, I just think some people might say that your Instagram-loving bitch wife actually doesn't want her privacy. How dare you, sir? My Instagram-loving bitch wife has always wanted her privacy. And you know what else? To hell with Canada. We are leaving. We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people. Come on, wife. We want privacy. We want privacy. We want privacy.
Well, you can't argue with that, can you? That's South Park. Well done, guys. And I would say the gloss may be coming off the Sussexes. Let's talk to Rupert Bell, TalkRadio's royal correspondent. Well, Rupert, I mean, I think that's rather good, isn't it?
It doesn't hold back, does it? Subtlety is not South Park's strong point. They go for the jugular, and they clearly have there. They clearly see... they have a very firm view of what they think of Meghan and Harry. They're the creators of the programme, and it is a view shared by many. And clearly, as they've got a court case going on at the moment with Samantha Markle saying, of which Samantha Markle is suing them. But one of the sort of ironies of it is it's all about anyone. They can attack anybody else, but they're not allowed to, you know, they don't want anyone to attack them.
No.
And this is the problem. So I'm sure they're not watching that particular episode of South Park, and this is the problem for Harry and Meghan.
Maybe they'll sue South Park. That would be an amusing court case in America, wouldn't it?
It would be, and you know, it's a bit like supposedly the reaction to Sasha Walpole's revelations about her being the one in the field in Gloucestershire. I gather that didn't go down well. So the reaction, it's when it's suddenly coming back at them,
yes,
they don't like it. As Captain Mannering said, they don't like it up them.
They certainly don't. And there's nothing worse than being sort of laughed at, I think, for people who are a little bit on the pompous side, who think of themselves as terribly serious and very important. And the best thing you can do with them is to laugh uproariously at everything that they do.
Yes, and look, there are clearly, Harry has had issues over the time of his life, and he's had some, you know, really heartbreaking moments in his life. But right now, I think people, and certainly in this country, don't like his bleatings when other people have got far more, most of the population have got far more worrying and troubling things to deal with. And I think that's part of the problem, that Harry and Meghan just haven't read the room, and they think it's all about them.
Yes.
And you know, ultimately, yes, it's great we have a royal family, but they do live in a gilded cage. They do have everything coming at them. And yes, they do good work. But, you know, in his case, he ought to now just sort of step back. And obviously, when you see a program like this coming out and further lampooning them, it doesn't do their credibility any good. And certainly in America reflects that the tide is changing, that they are no longer quite the golden couple that they'd hoped to be.
Well, I think it's right when they point out that, you know, and so you're you say you've had a terrible life, and, you know, people are just laughing, going, what do you mean you've had a terrible life? I mean, you've got to look across to other parts of the world where you've got people dying in their thousands, tens of thousands in Turkey in that horrible earthquake, in Syria as well. You've got the war in Ukraine. You've got poverty and starvation in parts of the world that they could go and help if they wanted to, but instead they sit, as you said, in this gilded cage, complaining about their privacy being invaded after writing several books and doing several television series about their lives.
Indeed, and one of the problems they're going to be is how do they keep the brand relevant? Because the way they've done it so far is by whinging and complaining and saying, look how hard, we had no choice, we are the victims here. Well, actually, you know, the royal family can't do anything. They won't, and their best form of attack has been getting out there, doing their thing, and we've seen that with the PR campaign around sort of Kate and her early learning campaigns and all this, that they've really said, right, we have to prove that we're relevant. Just get out there, don't comment, do what we're supposed to do. And that's the whole point, whereas we now see in America that Harry and Meghan are basically being turned into a figure of fun, and that's why it's going to be hard for them to make sure that they remain relevant in their eyes and can monetize their brand, which is dependent, though, on the royal family.
Absolutely right. Now, I know you probably weren't planning on talking about this, but I must mention Raquel Welch to you, because you're probably somebody that does remember Raquel Welch. She's on the front page of quite a few of the papers this morning. Died at the age of 82 after a brief illness. I've got a little Raquel Welch story that I want to tell you.
Right.
This was when I was working in America, and I was working as a freelance for various different organs. And amongst the two organs was one thing called The Star, which was a sort of tabloid news magazine, but also I was strangely working for the Times Business News at the same time, and I was on the phone to the Times Business News desk talking through the various stories of the day, and I'd been trying to get an interview with Raquel Welch, and the little beep went on the phone, you know, when you have call waiting and it goes beep, and I said to this guy at the Times, Roger I think his name was, I said, hang on Roger, I've just got another call. Hit the button, and I said, hello, this is Mike Graham. Oh, hi Mike, this is Raquel Welch. And I was like, hold on a second. I went back to the guy at the Times, who's never believed me to this day. I said, look, I'm really sorry, Roger, I've got to go. Raquel Welch is on the other phone.
I hope it went well for you.
It did.
But I think about Raquel Welch, there was a bizarre thing. I think one of Harvey or her daughter or someone married Harvey Smith's son or daughter.
Yes.
And you imagine the bruff-talking show jumper, you know, and Raquel Welch. I mean, that would have been a very interesting dinner party.
It would have been. Also, I very much remember, because I think I was in newspapers at the time, that when she turned up for the wedding, she was wearing a rather revealing, glamorous dress, and she rather outshone, a very American thing to do, rather outshone the bride, I'm afraid.
I think she did. But just the idea of her turning up with Harvey Smith, who, for people who don't know, was, of course, famous for...
The two-fingered salute.
He was one of a big sporting star, because one of the few sports that was shown live back in the 70s and 80s was show jumping. And he was, he still is, a very colourful character. But the idea of Raquel Welch and Harvey Smith sitting around the dinner table is just one image that I've always remembered and thought, well, you never know what your children are going to do.
Exactly right. Rupert, good to see you. Have a great weekend if I don't speak to you before. Rupert Bell there with his remembrances of Raquel Welch. What a fabulous, glamorous actress she was in Hollywood.